Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another LFC Transfer Room video. Welcome back to our channel. Today, as you guys can see, Charlie is not here with us, so I'm going to be taking over for today. But we have a very special video, a very special guest. We have Jack from NUFC or Newcastle 360. How's it going, Jack? How are you, man?
I'm alright, mate. How are you? Well, I mean, to be honest, the transfer window is massively draining me. But apart from that, I'm all good.
We will be. What side of town are you? Do you live in Newcastle as well?
No, I used to. I've literally only just moved to London about a month ago for my job. I work for Talksport as well, so I've moved to basically for that. So yeah, I'm in London.
Love it. How have you been dealing with the whole situation? You've been enjoying it so far, yeah?
You know what? Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. To be fair, so far it's been a really good month in terms of career progression. Loads of really good stuff's been going down, so I've been really happy. Yeah,
That's wonderful, Jack, and that's one of the main reasons as well that we have you here. You guys, I'm pretty sure, are the best ones to discuss this, and I'm glad that you're doing an incredibly job. By the way, congratulations for the move on your job. But let's just jump straight to the point. I know
100%.
everybody's looking to get lots of answers, and most importantly, to see what's your take so far on the whole situation, the whole Alexander Isak situation with Liverpool, with Newcastle and to a certain point, there's lots of rumors going on at the moment regarding what's going on with the whole situation. I don't think anybody can really tell us what's going to happen. We all have an idea of what's going on. But my very first question to you is just how are Newcastle fans handling the whole situation? What is going through you guys' head at the moment? Because it's a roller coaster of emotions at the moment, as you
Yeah.
guys can tell.
So I think there's two things. I think we're disappointed in how the club have handled Alexander Isak's situation. Not this summer, more so last season. And we're also really disappointed in the way Isak's gone on about it as well, to be honest. So I think if we start with the club's point first. So initially Newcastle basically promised Alexander Isak a new contract. That was Amanda Staveley, who was of course the co-owner. She then left the club, but she said to him in quite no uncertain terms that he would become essentially the highest earner at Newcastle. That was promised, even though he still had a long time left on his deal. Paul Mitchell, the sporting director, then last season decided to can those contract talks because Isak still had 3.5 years left on his contract. So, of course, that's a broken promise. I think at that point, I don't think Isak had any inclination about wanting to leave anywhere. Always every interview seems like really happy, seems to enjoy living in Newcastle, enjoy playing for Newcastle, enjoy playing under Eddie Howe. So there's that point. And then I can see why you'd be a bit annoyed about that. And then you kind of watch what's happened this summer, and Newcastle have gone in for numerous players and not brought them in, which I think maybe kind of explains the timing of it all a little bit, because I think he did give Newcastle about a month or so to kind of bring in some top players. In the end, the only player they signed until he decided to not go on pre-season tour was Elanga. So, and Elanga's a great player. I think he'd be really good, but I think he was probably expecting more. Once Newcastle get in the Champions League, the way I think most Newcastle fans looked at it this summer was this was a chance to turn Newcastle from a Champions League challenging team in the sense of like trying to get in the top four every season to a Premier League challenging team, because the basis of a top team is there. It just needed a few key additions. This summer has turned out to be not that at all. In fact, it could end up setting us back years at this point. We've still got time to turn it around, but at this moment in time, that's how we feel. On Isak's situation, so he doesn't go on pre-season tour with a thigh injury, which a scan showed was absolutely clear. My view on that is no matter how small the injury was, he should be on the plane because it's a PR tour. Your best player needs to be there for Newcastle's Asian fan base to see. They want to see Alexander Isak. So, in my view, obviously we're not going to know properly what happened until maybe there's a resolution of this situation. In my view, Isak said he's not going on the plane, and that's it. And then he was spotted in Spain training alone last week. And I just think it's an absolute slap in the face to Newcastle fans and Eddie Howe, who, have Eddie Howe's protected him a lot when Newcastle signed Isak. There was a lot of criticism over his season he had for Real Sociedad. I think it was 6 goals he scored the season before. Newcastle dropped £63 million on him. And Newcastle fans absolutely idolise this guy. And you can want to leave a club, and look, we can get on to Liverpool's interest and stuff as well. But you gotta go about it in a different way. This is such a disrespectful way to do it. And now, if the transfer doesn't happen, there's going to be an awkward reintegration. And Newcastle fans will never see Isak in the same light as maybe Bruno Guimaraes or a Joe Linton or a Sandro Tonali or whatever. Tonali, who went through that betting ban to come back and has dedicated himself to Newcastle. So I think that's how we see it. So club and player at blame here.
Interesting, and obviously it's a very sticky situation with the whole behavior from the player itself. There's lots of, reports going on, which obviously some local reports at Liverpool are saying that the player did mention a year ago that he wanted to leave, just like you said. There's other reports saying that Newcastle are taking the situation as a very baffling approach from Liverpool, trying to unsettle the player. And obviously, there's kind of like two sides of the story, and I'm glad that you have given us a little bit more clarity on the whole situation. But my question to you is I know you mentioned that he wanted to become, or he at least was offered to become the best player, the best paid player in the squad. Um, is he the best player at Newcastle at the moment, or would you say that the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, for example, are up there, or does he deserve? First of all, how much do you think he deserves getting paid, and do you think he is the best performing player at the club at the moment?
Yeah, I think Isak is Newcastle's best player because we're talking about one of the best strikers in the world here. Like, if we look at last season, he got 27 goals across the whole season. That's in all competitions. However, for, I'll say, 20 games of the season, he was absolutely rubbish. Genuinely, like, it was like he wasn't even on the pitch. Like, genuinely might as well not be playing. So, that shows you how good he is if the fact he can get to 27 goals and have 20 games across all competitions where he does literally nothing. So, there, you're working at world class striker, and that's why he should be Newcastle's best paid player. And Newcastle have tried to offer him a new contract now, but it's too late. You know, it was there last summer. It was there last season. That's when it should have happened. In fact, as soon as Newcastle got the Champions League football, it should have been in the boardroom the following day. Right, here's a new contract. We even put a release clause in it for like European clubs next summer or whatever. But just get him a new contract, and we wouldn't have any of this summer because then Liverpool wouldn't have had even an inkling of a chance of getting him because ultimately he wasn't on the market. So that's the issue that we've got for here. But yeah, I totally think Isak's our best player. Don't think he's our most important player. There's a difference. I think every team can have that. Our most important player is probably Bruno Guimaraes or Sandro Tonali, probably. But ultimately, he is definitely Newcastle's best player, and that's why Liverpool want him because, as I said, only Haaland, and Salah over the last few seasons have scored more goals than him.
Absolutely, and in an ideal situation, from the Liverpool side perspective, we really hope that he moves, and we hope that you guys end up with a top replacement like Sesko, or we don't know
Sesko's not
what
happening.
that. Yeah, we don't know where that line's really going to take us. But yesterday, new reports are saying that it might be he might be prioritizing a move to Man United, and that's where my next question comes. And I ask you, Jack. First of all, is there, let's say, worst case scenario, Isak does leave and Newcastle does not bring a replacement? Obviously, that's the worst case scenario. Is there a world where Newcastle can still challenge for the same amount of performances this season without an Alexander Isak? Or do you think that for sure they will need to bring in a top replacement? I know you did mention as well his hiatus is his up and downs in performances, but he still had the goals.
Yeah,
But do you
exactly. Yeah.
think there still is a future without him, or do you guys need him crucially in order to perform to the top of the level once again?
I think it'd be pure negligence by the club if they let Isak go and there's not a top class replacement. And the only one on the market for me was Shesko, simply because of his age. Maybe again, Shesko has kind of had a bit of a similar season to Isak, where last year he didn't actually score that many goals like across the whole year. But ultimately, he's 22. He's almost in the exact same position as Isak would have been. And now, and if he'd moved to Newcastle, which he's not going to now, it's basically he's going to Manchester United. Then we would have been looking in 3 years again where he'd probably be one of the best strikers in the world because he's getting to work under Eddie Howe again, and he makes players better. It's just what he does. He makes players better. So Sesko's not happening. So now the only player they can really even think of, I mean, we're with Nicholas Jackson. I mean, if we got him, I mean, that would be horrendous. I mean, spending 50, 60 million pounds on him. Like, I think he's actually a decent footballer, but it's the fact that you're losing Isak and getting Nicholas Jackson and also then funding Chelsea's next transfer window. It's just wrong on all levels. So it's for me now, it's actually no matter what Liverpool offer, and this isn't what Liverpool fans are going to want to hear, but if Newcastle are a serious club, no matter what Liverpool offer, they have to say no. Like, just no. Like, Isak has to stay because Isak can want to push for this move, and he will until the transfer window closes. But as soon as it closes, That's it. He's not going to refuse to play for a year. That'd be insane. You refuse to play for a year. You think next summer anyone's going to want you? The same clubs are going to want you? No, they're not, because you've just refused to play football for an entire year. So it's so simple now. Can't get Chesko, which they're not going to get. It's simply now Isak has to just be forced to stay. And no matter what Liverpool offer, even if they offer 180 million or whatever, because otherwise Newcastle will go so far backwards and we'll lose all that progress that has been built up over the last few seasons. It actually set us back so badly. And next summer you'd have the likes of Tonali, Gordon, maybe Bruno, thinking, unfortunately I've given my all, but where's this going? And that's the problem. It's actually that crucial of a situation we're in.
Jack, is there a relationship there for the club and the player to, well, actually the fans and the player to be fixed? Or do you think it's the relationship is already broken? And what do you expect to happen next season if he does stay?
It'll never be the same. Never be the same. Like, even you've scored a winner in the cup final, that would be club icon status. Now it's just you scored a winner in a cup final, because no club icon then does what he's done this summer. So that's gone. However, let's be absolutely real here. If the transfer window closes and he's still a Newcastle player and he does a celebration when he scores, it'll never be the same feeling. But ultimately, you'll be like, okay, you're giving us one more year. You're going to try and score as many goals as possible. And there's an acceptance that you'll go next summer. We'll sort of write this off as like a bump in the road, shall we say. And he will be accepted. Eddie Howe will accept him back in as well. You can't have a player like that just not playing. And if he ends up staying, he will have to play. But I don't think it'll never be the same. Never be the same, and that's fine. But if it gets to that point, it's more important for Newcastle's season and the future of Newcastle that we get one more year of Isak, which then gives Newcastle a year to find an actual replacement as well. And then he goes. That's where we're in this situation now where, for me and for most Newcastle fans, it's a case of, because we can't get Chesko, Isak has to stay.
Absolutely, and I do understand the feeling because of the other day we were discussing with a few other fans that we went through a very similar situation when Felipe Coutinho was trying to leave to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Obviously, the money was there on the table. It was going to be a world record fee, and I believe he still is the third most expensive transfer in history. And we wanted to keep him. We wanted to keep him for that additional year. And honestly, from a actually from a personal perspective, I do understand and I do agree completely with you. From as a Liverpool fan perspective, I do want him to leave as soon as possible and just
Of
come our
course,
way.
of course.
But I do think your stance is very mature and very real. I mean, Newcastle should fight for their top player at least for at the very least for another year because you guys will go back in progress if that's the case. Nonetheless, so we're gonna take a quick pause, and I'm gonna tell everybody to make sure you guys are subscribing. We do have a new schedule set up where we'll be bringing you 3 videos a week, so make sure you're subscribed and make sure you check out Jack and the other lads at Newcastle 360. But yeah, now that we already got the whole Newcastle and Isak situation out of the way, Jack,
Yeah.
let's jump into the player a little bit more, and also let's jump into a little bit of how we would fit the Arne Slot system. I know you mentioned that his performances weren't the best aside from his goals, of course, last season. Do you think that the style of player that he is, he would fit the mold of an Arne Slot Liverpool? And do you think he will do really well in a team like Liverpool?
So for Liverpool, if we're talking about off the ball stuff initially, Isak's brilliant at that. What he's also incredible at is finding space in the box and movement. And if you look at almost all of his goals, they are stylistically good. Like, he's quite an aesthetically pleasing player to watch. There's a lot of comparisons to Thierry Henry. And obviously not saying he's anywhere near as good as, but in terms of a modern day comparison, he's as close as you're going to get to Thierry Henry because he's like this rangy 6'4" forward, but he's so much better with his feet than his head. And he doesn't really score many headers at all, to be honest. In terms of for Liverpool, like, I've seen, obviously Kitike is now there, and I don't see a world where they both start and fit in the same team. To be honest, I don't, because if I'm looking at the Liverpool team at the moment I'm not even seeing Szoboszlai getting in the team, which is quite insane because you've got Wirtz there playing in behind the striker, unless Wirtz plays on the left, which is entirely possible as well, and that'd be obviously Gakpo dropped. So you could say Wirtz and Szoboszlai. That's probably another potential option. One thing is Liverpool have got potential options, but if then that's the case, where you get Isak and Ekitike in the team because Salah's not getting dropped, so it's one of those where I'd feel extremely bad for Ekitike almost immediately because he'd be the one to be on the bench. You don't spend upwards of, well, a British transfer record is what it's going to be, to then put Isak on the bench. So it'd be Ekitike on the bench. In terms of Isak in the Liverpool's team, he'd be absolutely deadly. I mean, we're talking 30 goals easily. Like with Wirtz, with Salah, with, Kirkez as well, because Kirkez is an unbelievable crosser of the ball. Like, he'd be absolutely insane. There's question marks over his fitness, which I disagree with. Last season, he missed 4 games, realistically. So the fitness issues come from maybe when he was at Real Sociedad in his first season at Newcastle. Since then, it's been pretty fine. In fact, a lot of times he's at a play at probably about 75% fitness because we've not had another striker to play instead, which maybe explains some of his poor performances. But if he's on top game and he can maybe rotate occasionally with Ekitike, he would be incredible for Liverpool. And you will walk the Premier League next season. Like, if Isak joins Liverpool, I've been saying this for a while, Newcastle, for one, who want to challenge Liverpool, can forget about that for years. That's not happening. But all the other teams chasing can forget about it as well, because Isak in that team would cause havoc. I mean, absolute havoc. With Salah, I saw something saying, Salah and Isak are taking up the same spaces. They genuinely won't. They will work together so well, and it'd be terrifying for the rest of the Premier League, which I'm sure is exactly what Liverpool fans want to hear.
And earlier reports did say that Eddie Howe wanted to link up Isak and Šeško
Yeah.
in a front too. Is Isak a player that can easily play with in a 2 striker formation? Do you think, or does he need to be the sole number 9?
So for Sweden, he plays as the number 10 because they have Gyökeres up front, don't they? So obviously they have Langer, they have Kulusevski, and then they have Gyökeres and Isak. And Isak's goal scoring record for Sweden isn't actually that good. Gyökeres is much better, but that's because Isak is happy to play as a 10. And for Newcastle, during his first year, Callum Wilson had a brilliant season. So Callum Wilson got 18 goals that season. And at the end of the year, when Newcastle went on a mad run that got them into the Champions League, Isak played as the 10 or on the left with Callum Wilson up front. And that worked brilliantly. Isak arriving sort of on the edge of the box. It was a great goal he scored against Brentford, where as the 10, he arrived on the edge of the box and then just first time curled it into the top corner. So he can operate in those positions because he's got the skills and he's got the technique and he's got the intelligence as well. The only thing I would question is maybe in playing in midfield or as a second striker is potentially his defensive, not work rate, but defensive mindset. I feel like he'd lose runners quite easily. If he was playing in attack, that's what one thing I was worried about with Newcastle, because obviously Newcastle want Ekitike, etc. It probably would have been Ekitike up front, Isak as a 10, and I think they would have lost something in midfield maybe. So that would be the only slight concern. But I do think if he goes to Liverpool, he's going to be the number 9, and he'll be the number 9 for however long until maybe Real Madrid or something come call him.
Very interesting, and I think you already touched on something that I wanted to ask you, which was his versatility. And now that you mentioned that he can play as a 10, sometimes he can even drop to the wings a little bit. That's a very important factor when it comes to the Liverpool or the Arne Slot system. And when it comes to weaknesses, I know we have mentioned lots of his strengths. I know we mentioned his scoring ability. You did touch on a few things, maybe the fitness, maybe the defensive side. But if you had to point out a general weakness on his game, what do you think that is? And also, do you think there's a bigger ceiling for him to reach, or do you think he already reached the peak of his technical ability?
I think he's nowhere near what he could be. I think genuinely this guy could be the best striker in the world easily because he's got everything. He's not like Haaland in the sense where he's just a pure goal scorer. Although I will be fair to Haaland. The Haaland at Dortmund was very different to the Haaland at Manchester City. At Dortmund, he was a much more complete player than he is now. But he is different in the sense that he's got so much more to his game. I mean, the dribbling, the passing, the general technique he has, it all is beyond what Haaland's got. So 100%, there's no limit for Alexander Isak, I don't think. In terms of his weaknesses, yeah, I have kind of mentioned them. I think sometimes he can get a bit frustrated and switch off sometimes. So I remember a couple of times this season where maybe he hadn't scored in a while, and then other players scored and he was always like the last one over to celebrate with them or something. And maybe that's just because he's a striker and he wants to score. But in the team ethos that we've built in Newcastle, it's not really what I want to see from a player who's, even though he's our best player, I want to see him getting involved in the celebrations. I don't really like that. So maybe there's that. I don't think that would necessarily be the case at Liverpool because he will be surrounded by everyone will be on his level. At Newcastle, let's be fair, not everyone is on his level. We have a lot of world-class players, but we also have some that aren't. So there's that. And then I think, defensively, just not the pressing. Pressing, he's sound, but I just think maybe if he did play in a different position, like on the left, track him back. I don't think you'd see him track him back, to be honest. So then you'd have Salah and Isak just standing up front, and then whoever's mark, like their fullbacks, just bombing past them. So that would be a problem. But again, if he plays as the striker, like there's not really too much he needs to do apart from lead the press off the ball. And then the fitness thing. But as I said, I think that's been overhyped. Certainly since he's got the Premier League, it's not that bad. He had sort of 3 months out in his first season, which was disappointing. And then he came back and ended the season with like 10 goals in 18 games or something. So brilliant end of the season. And then the second season, him and Callum Wilson both had little niggly injuries, but I can't remember how many games he actually missed, but I don't think it was many. And then last season, he missed 4. So not too bad, realistically, when everyone's whinging about his fitness record.
What do we say? Obviously, this is more of a personal opinion question, and we are about to close down. We just have a couple minutes left here, but where do we rank him among the best strikers in the world? I personally think he is indeed the best striker in the league, even above Holland. I do think there are different types of players, but again, that's more of a personal opinion. Where do you think he fits in the best Premier League strikers ranking, and also when it comes to the whole world?
Premier League, I'd put him second because I still would put Haaland just because as a striker, look, your currency's goals, and he's the one who scored the most goals. So even though Haaland maybe does some things that aren't as good to watch as Isak, and in the entertainment industry, we like to see like players cutting inside and bending it in maybe rather than a tap in. So yeah, fair enough. But equally, sport and Premier League football is about points and goals, and Haaland gets the most. So Haaland's best striker. And then you got Mbappe. And I'd put him third in the world. I can't really think. Lewandowski, obviously still unbelievable, but, getting towards the end. Harry Kane. So he's behind Harry Kane as well. So fourth in the world. Fourth best striker in the world. I think that's probably where Isak is.
Considering his age as well, and his ceiling, like you were just saying, obviously that definitely puts him, gives him a few extra points in there. But as we're getting closer to wrapping up this whole situation, I do want to ask you regarding the future with Newcastle, because you did mention you wouldn't even sell him if it was for 180 million pound bid. I want to ask you first of all, what's next for Newcastle? Because there has been lots of rejections lately when it comes to bringing players in, but at the same time, it's been very public that the effort has been there, right? So
Yeah.
I want to ask you regarding that because lots of people are turning against the board and the management, but the effort is being very publicly that they're trying to go get these players. Obviously, they're not able to bring them. But what do you think is next? Where do you think you guys are going to target, and do you think that you will be complete as a squad before the start of the Premier League season?
I mean, at this moment in time, the squad is worse than it was last season and smaller than it was last season because Sean Longstaff and Callum Wilson have gone and there's no replacements for them. And Joe Willock also picked up an injury in pre-season, to be out for about 6 weeks. So at the moment, Newcastle are down to 4 central midfielders. And when you play a 3-man central midfield, you're going to need more than that. So Newcastle need to sign at least a central midfielder. There's a need for a top right-side centre-back. Fabian Schär has been brilliant for Newcastle. I mean, £3 million, one of our best ever signings, no question about that. But he's in his mid-30s now. Last season, there was a few signs, a few games where I was like, he's not sure about him starting every game next year. He needs to be probably the backup one. So, right-sided centre-back. And then I'm gonna assume Isak stays for this point. So then we need a Callum Wilson replacement, and we'll be linked with Johan Visser. This actually wants to join us, unlike everyone else. So that's great, but Brentford aren't letting him go until they get a replacement. So that one might drag on a little bit later into the window. I think that one will happen because it feels like he's basically verbally agreed the deal already. He's in refusing to train, which again I totally disagree with. Like it's like it's the same thing with Isak. I've seen some Liverpool fans saying it's great that he's not training and stuff. No, it's not. I hate what Visser's doing as well. Like, I know you want to join the club, but you go about it a different way. Brentford gave Visser his chance from the French league. Thomas Frank developed him into a top striker, like 19 goals last season, and then he's just throwing it all back in their face and refusing to train. So I disagree with that entirely, but I do think Visser probably will happen. And then you're looking at they've got a goalkeeper, got the right winger. So look, if Newcastle can get those players, then the squad will be better than it was last season, and there's still a chance to have a good season. It's just the issue is this summer was billed as the one that was going to transform Newcastle. With say if they'd signed João Pedro, Brian Mbeumo, and say Huijsen, who went obviously Real Madrid. Like, Newcastle got those, then you're looking at genuinely a team who could challenge for the title. It's probably not going to be that now. To be honest, the way I see it at the moment is the top four just going to run away with it. Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City. I think they're going to be about 10, 12 points clear of the rest. And Newcastle will be fighting to finish fifth with Villa, Spurs, Man United, probably maybe Brighton. So that's probably where we're at. And it's a bit disappointing, but ultimately, look, it's a lot better than it used to be. I mean, getting relegation battles. It's just I think it's more the hope this summer and then the fact that they haven't been able to deliver as of yet. And it's been pretty embarrassing in many ways, the fact that it's all been so public and out there. And, it just hasn't gone our way whatsoever.
Absolutely, Jack, and hopefully next season does bring lots of better news, and we'll see how this transfer really does unfold. I mean, if you guys ever need a striker, I do know a Premier League proven striker that's around 25 years old and plays at Liverpool that you guys might consider. I
Looks
don't
like he's going
know.
to Saudi Arabia, so it looks like our owners are directly funding it. So don't worry about that. That's fine. He's going straight to Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. That'll be a very interesting one because the potential is there. Lots of fans do see Darwin. Uh, he has a potential. It's just that he's just very radical. But
I love Darwin. He's one of my favourite players to watch in the Premier League because he has no idea what he's going to do. So I wonder if there's anyone else know what he's going to do. I mean, it's maybe not great as a fan who supports him, but it's brilliant as a neutral. It's great. Like, he misses from 2 yards out and he's laughing. It's yeah, he doesn't care.
Darwin will go from the best player in the world to probably a U15 player in a matter of 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But
Pre-season Darwin's pretty good though. He's been banging them in, hasn't he? He can't stop scoring in pre-season.
oh my god! Hopefully, I think it's a haircut. The buzz
Yeah, the
cut
new
you gave
haircut.
him.
Yeah. Buzz cut. Looks good. Looks good, to be fair.
Thank you very much, Jack. I mean, it's been a very fun discussion. It's been
Yeah,
almost 30
it's really
minutes. I know
interesting.
we said we were going to go for like 15, 20, but this has been very, very nice and nice to talk to you. Tell everybody where we can find you, what you've been, we're going to be working on and whatnot as we get ready to close down the show.
Yeah, no, so Twitter handles there at JackCun96. And yeah, and then obviously I work for TalkSport. So I'm mainly on the website, but lately I've been doing a lot of on air stuff. So we have a goal show that I'm regularly on. So that'll be on YouTube. So the first one's next Saturday, Newcastle Aston Villa. I'm going to be on that. So just go on to TalkSport's YouTube channel and it'll be there. It's one of the live things. So I'll do that. And then also I'm regularly on the Sports Bar, which is our evening show with Jason Cundy and Jimmy O'Hara. That's from 10 till 1 a.m. UK time. So I'm on that as well. Yeah.
Lovely, Jack. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we have another chance to chat. Other than that, from the LFC Transfer Room, I do want to thank you and obviously all our viewers. Thank you very much. If you've been watching up to this point, make sure you stay tuned, you follow, you subscribe, you make sure you check out Jack, and we will be talking to you in our next video. Thank you very much.